In my private mentorship, I made 12 extremely, extremely complex and complicated models. And I did that to weed out the assholes. And I knew they would be sharing it. I knew they'd be pushing it around. Those models make money, but they are so high end and high demanding, nobody is going to follow them because they are forcing people to do very specific things that they're not going to wait for. But every single one of them make money. And I'll just tip my hand and tell you that I have told them in private mentorship that they are to use the 2022 model and to simply replace the PD array that the fair value gap is, simply use the breaker or an order block or a mitigation block or an institutional order flow entry drill. Everything else is the same. That's it. It is not complicated. I complicated it because I knew I had rats in the house with me. Okay. And I smashed a lot of their heads, throwing their asses out. And now we're at the stage where only the real students that are interested in learning how to do it, they're in there, we're engaging on the forum, and there it is. But I will share that and I divulge that openly so that way you know. When people are out there trying to say, I have ICT mentorship and ICT's opening up his mentorship, or you see people out there pretending to be me saying, I'm opening up my mentorship. I'm not opening up my fucking mentorship. I'm not. I'm mentoring right now. I'm sitting here droning on and on, mentoring you right now, giving you gold. Like I'm giving you the real shit, the real things. This is exactly how I talked to my one-on-ones in the 90s. When I sat with people one-on-one and trained them individually, this is exactly how I talk to them. I talk to them just like this. I use these same reference points. I've talked about this almost verbatim. The piece of paper I'm holding is the same discolored piece of paper from 1996. Yes, it looks like it's been it looks like it's had better days. But hey, it's a long time ago, right? But you have to know that social media is toxic and you're trying to keep up with the Joneses and the social media equity curve that everyone's trying to be the person of interest right now. Fuck all that. It's not, look, I'm growing fast and I don't give a shit. I don't care. I don't care if I don't reach my 1 million subscribers. I would like to. It's just a milestone for me. I just want to do it as a goal. If I don't reach it, I'm not going to cry about it. I'm not going to bellyache. I'm not going to regret or sulk about it. I don't care. But I think if I keep doing what I'm doing, it's going to be the result. And that's fine. But journaling is crucial and it's for optimal development. And submitting to that process that we've talked about here, if you have not started a journal and logging old trade ideas that you didn't participate in and marking them up with great detail of what it is you see in the chart, if you're not revisiting that on the weekends, instead of reading the newspaper or horse shit magazines that you shouldn't be looking at pornos and stuff like that, all that stuff is a distraction. It's terrible, terrible waste of time. You need to go back through data, look at old chart moves. Okay. Another thing, if you see that some of my students are sharing their examples where they're taking the trades and they're actually entering the trades and engaging and doing stop losses and targets, that's actually a fruitful thing too, because you're watching other people do what you're learning. So it's not like I'm the only magician here showing a magic trick and performing for you. You can see I have students that are absolutely able to do these things. So there's logic that works and they're not being told what to do. And I sure as hell I'm not doing sock puppeting. I don't have that shit. I'm not doing that. I don't have time for it. Like I'm wrapped up in my own shit here. Last thing. Okay. We made it. Not really, because there's some other shit on the end of this. But know what low-hanging fruit is and target that. Now, what does that mean? Probably hear multiple times, low-hanging fruit, low-hanging objectives and targets. If you're short, okay, what's the closest short-term low? If you're entering on like a 5-minute chart, where's the nearest 15-minute low? Where's the hourly low? That's going to be the closest one if the market just keeps dropping. How far away is that? Now let's talk about this because this is a question I saw on Twitter, where on Forex I have a rule, like I like 30 pips as a a Judas swing or less. Generally, it's usually around 20 pips or so in London. If you're going to create the high of the day or low of the day, it's going to be a protraction, market protraction, where it goes the opposite direction you think the market's going to go for that particular day. It's usually 30 pips or less. And if it goes beyond 30 pips and it can go to 40. But once it goes over 40, chances are it's probably absolutely not going to be where I think it's going to go. And I have to flip and change my outlook and then look for something else. Maybe not in the same session, maybe later in the day or something like that, in like the New York session. And the question came up like, if you're saying that in terms of pips for Forex, what would be the equivalent in index futures? And I don't really have a format like that, because currencies and the algorithm that runs on those interbank levels, that's something very specific. And it's a little bit more difficult for me to nail down a specific number of handles. So the way we strip that down is I just simply look at the 5-minute and 15-minute highs. And wherever the buy side above that is, I'm looking for it to at least reach there if I'm bearish. Or if it has, say, taken out relative equal highs or a single high on a 5 or 15-minute chart, and we're now dropping already, and it's beginning the morning session, 8:30, or it's crossing over to 9:30, then I'm going to look for a fair value gap. If there's a fair value gap, then I know that the stop run already took place before the opening in New York. So all I'm going to do is look for a fair value gap, and then there it is. It started its move early. But if I take that type of trade, regardless of which one I'm using for that given day, they're never going to be the same. You won't see both those instances. It can't be. Either the relative equal highs if you're bearish, or the singular 15 or 5-minute high that has buy side above it if you're bearish. We are always anticipating that type of scenario where it runs up, knocks out that, scoops up that buy side to pair with shorts, and short is the smart money. They're going to look for what? A low. And the low-hanging fruit in that example would be the nearest 5-minute or 15-minute low. Now, if you happen to have a 15-minute or 5-minute low that's like maybe 5 handles or 6 handles below, I'm not going to consider that. I'm looking for something that has at least 10 handles or more before that's my first objective. Like that's me. That's my personal. That's not my son's model. My son's models, if he gets 5 handles, he's done. I'm a little bit more diverse, and I can look for a little bit more from the market than just simply that, clearly. So I'm looking for a low-hanging fruit objective would be 10 handles below where I got in at. So I'm measuring, okay, where my entry is. I'm already looking for where I'm going to try to get in at anyway. But if I secure the entry and I'm short, and everything I'm saying here is reversed for going long. So just listen to the logic, write it out on a piece of paper, and then reverse everything directionally, and you'll have the same thing without me saying it the other way. But if you're looking for low-hanging fruit objectives, you can do your entire career with just that. Where your entry is, and if you get 10 handles below your entry, that's your low-hanging fruit. Boom, done. Now, if you're going to use what I taught as my son Caleb's model, I made that public. It's out there. I think it's in my 2022 mentorship. It's one of those videos later in the series or whatever. Then obviously you use that model, and that's that low-hanging fruit. You have a static 5 handles, 20 ticks, and you're done. That's it. You don't care what the rest of the day is going to be. And you start with that. And you start with low-hanging fruit objectives like that, and it's static. You're not trying to build in a pyramid. You're not trying to turn day trades into position trades. Oh, this is going to be a one-shot, one kill. I'm going to hold it for a week. No. The path to consistency is doing things over and over and over again that are consistently resulting in yielding positive results. And the easiest way to build confidence in what you're doing is finding comfort and trust in knowing that enough is enough. 10 handles. 10 handles in the E-mini S&P. It's $500 per contract. So I don't know where you're from, but I don't mind if I got $500 a day. $500, that's pretty good. I average a little bit more than that per day in ad revenue on YouTube. It's nice. It's a nice little kitty of money. But something happens when you get in there and you push a button, and because if it starts taking off real quick, you start thinking, oh, it might go down to that other thing that's way down here. Because what happens if there's a 50 handle day? What happens if it isn't? And you didn't take your profit and it reverses? That's the perspective you're supposed to have. You got to get paid when it gives you the opportunity to get paid. That's why you're here. You're not here for trophies. You're not here for fucking clout. Okay. You're here to make money. That's it. You're not here for friends. You're not here for relationships. You're not here for any kind of attention. You're here to just find some money. That's it. And consistently find an approach that gives you the opportunity to bank that. And you have to do this in your demo account for months to get used to doing that. And over time, how much time? Could take years for some of you, and maybe less for others. But for a rule of thumb, an approach that can be, in my opinion, replicated by the majority of you, not every one of you. Some of you are just never going to be able to do this, and that's the reality of it. Doesn't mean I'm a failure. Doesn't mean I'm a fraud. It doesn't mean my concepts don't work. It just simply means that you can't do it. And there should be no shame in that. If you ever get to the point where you come to the conclusion that you can't, then okay, no problem. Don't torture yourself anymore. I've had relationships and friends with people that over the last 30 years, they're not here anymore. They ended themselves. Not because they traded my concepts and they failed, because they did their own thing and they lost. And they lost big and they ended themselves. And I also have friends that did very little in terms of damage to themselves monetarily and they killed themselves for nothing. Nothing. 50 grand? Your whole life is 50 grand? Every one of my vehicles that are paid for, and I'm not leasing, by the way. The titles, there's no stamps or a lien against any of them. Vinny. The all of my vehicles cost more than $50,000. And my friend ended himself. $50,000 gone. He's no here. He's not here anymore. Bunch of sleeping pills, and he's resting in peace, I guess. That's how bad it can be if you can't wrestle this stuff beforehand. And you would have never expected that from him. He seemed happy. He seemed chipper all the time. Growing up, we were, the typical. But this kind of stuff, mm-mm, it it broke him. And he didn't give any sign outwardly. Left a note saying, "I lost everything. I can't do it." That sucks because you can't say anything to him anymore. You can't encourage him. You can't float him alone to say, "Hey, look, I'll fund you to get you back." And there's a lot of you that listen to me. And I don't know where you're at in your life. I don't know what you've done, or what kind of harm you can have to yourself. But I try to do everything I can. I try to do everything I can to keep these types of things from occurring again. And one of the fears I have is, say I do meet an untimely end. Okay. Lord calls me home and that's his business and I'm ready when he wants to do it. But if my kids don't know how to do this like I want them to know it, I would not want them to feel that kind of pressure. I wouldn't want them to have that level of pressure on them that they feel like it's too much, it's overwhelming. So growing up, I pushed a lot for them to want to do what I do, but I didn't push so hard that they would feel like they have to do that. So that's why I drove them into working. That way, it wasn't me twisting their arm like a dad saying, "Go to my alma mater." go to my college and try to live vicariously through my kids. I am dying to live vicariously through my kids as a trader. I want to see them doing well and me grow older, watching them do, wild exploits and conquering things and taking down huge windfall victories and things. I want to see that, not just in one kid. I want all my children to do that, but it might be an unrealistic expectation for me. It's clearly not going to happen with my daughter, at least for right now, it hasn't. But I forced them into having jobs, thinking that that would be better for them. And when I was raising them, I got in arguments with people online that would say, "Oh, no, because I told them, I said, look, I'm setting them up. They ain't gonna do any of that stuff." And a guy sends me an email or rips into me and says, "You're doing the worst thing you can do," and blah blah blah. I think I've said this before. Matter of fact, I know I have. But I started seeing some of those things manifest in Cody, and it made me change my approach with the other ones.